All right, good afternoon. This is going to be an update on the Pokémon Red reinforcement learning project. Last time we had asked DeepSeek and ChatGPT to make some changes to how to encourage the model to go out and learn more as it explored the map. Then we went and we live streamed those changes in place, and essentially what ended up happening is that the agents more or less sat in the menus of the game. The reason for doing this is that it would still get this exploration boost reward here when it was in the menus. I'm not sure what exactly was the trigger for that, as it was based on location. So then I'm assuming that the agents were being viewed as being in another location on the map. So this end coordinate here for the different buildings and areas throughout the game. So I tried to make a couple changes over the weekend and see if that would actually improve the output here. And this is what I settled into last night before I kicked things off and running. So I put in a function here to check if the agent itself is in battle. The idea here is that we would be pausing the exploration rewards during battle. So that way it's not getting penalized by being in the battle. And then what ended up happening here is that the menus ended up being a bigger factor. So I thought, the agents battling the other trainers and not getting scores, it wanted to try and avoid that. Same thing with like the wild Pokemon battles. So it essentially never left the Pallet Town area and sat in the menus. So I put in this change, and originally I just set the entirety of this reward to be 0. And what ended up happening is that the agents didn't even want to go outside of Professor Oak's office. It was just trying to sit, and it was using the computer, taking items in and out of the inventory to kind of trigger that, because that was still something it could do to adjust the rewards. But it got to a point where it no longer wanted to participate in any random battles. It would always run from them if it triggered them. But the exploration kind of slowly withered away over time, especially because it was running from battles, so the Pokemon weren't getting stronger. Then you have cases where it was trying to, battle a trainer and then got sent all the way back to the starting area. So then it didn't want to do much of anything after that point. And looking at the logs here, we kind of see that bear out a bit and now at least have a better explanation of it. So this was something that, if I click into the training runs here, we do see that like the rewards vary a little bit, but it stopped trying to go out and continue doing battles. It basically was like, oh, there's got to be better alternatives here, even though the rewards necessarily don't bear that out. And then this was the live run that was showing here. And you can see its rewards have barely exceeded 100 in terms of this. So that's the combination of everything. So the level here mostly came from capturing Pokemon. That's why you see a jump here at the very beginning. So it might capture like a level 3 or 4 Pokemon, and then Squirtle itself levels up once or twice, and that's it. And you can see here it working on the computer to kind of manipulate the item score here, because you start with 3 at the beginning of every run. You have, Pokeballs, Potion, and I think an Antidote. And so that was what it was going through, was just like trying to find ways to iterate across that. Heal mostly comes from when it had gotten knocked out along the way, so it was trying to explore, but wasn't letting its Pokemon actually like participate in the battle at all. And you can see here the seen Pokemon is only 4, so it didn't really do much outside of getting out of Pallet Town itself and all the way through here. So it really was not progressing in the game. So then I came here and I made the changes, but then I realized just setting the score to 0 was having another adverse effect where it was no longer going through and exploring. So then I adjusted it so that the this frequency penalty, which has a max of 0 or 1 minus this resync coordinate count, to just be 0 in the case of it actually being in battle, or it being in the menus here. And then I realized that's also going to cause an issue because being in battle is actually a positive thing that we want, whereas being in the menus, we don't want that to be positive. So having the reward here be 0 is perfectly fine. The issue here is that when it's in battle, this should actually have been a 1. To go ahead and improve the outcome here, just in general, we're setting the frequency to be 0 and then figure out what that value should be along the way. So it's either going to be one of these flags here where it's in battle, or it's in the, I'm going to call them non-essential menu. So the general start menu, the Pokemon stats menu, the player stats menu, and then the Pokemon menu. And then if it's not in any of those, well, we're going to go through, we're going to look at the coordinates, and we're going to try and give a bonus here, even though we call it a frequency penalty, because at the end we take that base reward and we take that penalty. So that's going to be the maximum of either 0 or 1 minus the recent coordinates count. And then we're only checking the last 4, so there's not really too much of a negative here. It's really the goal is to try and prevent it from being negative. When you see the runs go, you will see some fluctuation here in the numbers. This is because you do have agents that are actually moving around. Again, if it goes to 0, it's likely the case that the agent is now in the battle. And we're seeing increased scores here in these scene Pokemon going up into the 20s, which means it's now starting to get to more of the trainer battles. And you can see here that the event score itself is also rising. Now we're coming up to near the end of a run, so we will see a reset shortly, but this is the training run here. You can now see kind of that positive trend here in the overall exploration scores, the total scores, and then the exploration scores as well. So it's learning to go into the menus less and less through the course of this, which is great because we want that to continue long term. Like I said, the average of the scene scores here is increasing as well, so it's starting to get into more of those trainer battles. We're seeing here one time it gotten up to about a 14 average level, and then this one here is trending in a positive direction as well. One of the things we're still lacking is that it has not been able to get the badges yet. So we're hoping that it continues to have better performance. The deaths here are also decreasing, so it's learning. You can see here the heal reward is going up as well. So it's learning the more proper way to play through the game in terms of making sure you're healing your Pokemon, avoiding deaths, getting out and exploring. And you can see here the average item score is slowly creeping up here as well, but it's not really gone above 3, so there's not too much to see here in terms of the trend. But we're seeing all the other numbers that we would want to trend up to continue to do so. So we see, like I said, the average amount of seen Pokemon are up, the average level is up, healing is on the rise, the use of the menus is going down, which we want to see. And then the same thing, deaths, we don't want that to decrease, or we don't want that to go too far down. Right now it's at about an average of 10 deaths per run through here. And then the other thing here is that this experience boost function, we're fairly level with it, but we're hoping that this will continue to trend up, with the caveat being that if you get into more and more battles, that would slowly slow that down. So I want to make that adjustment to the experience booster here to kind of push that up so we can see more when it's actually doing the battles. My only hope, though, is that by increasing the score, it doesn't want to choose to stay in a battle at the end, so that way it can obtain its full rewards and continue on the exploration. And then you can see here too, the event score is starting to creep up as well. So we're seeing that here. I think our run just reset. Yeah. Oh no, we still got a couple. Okay. So there were a few that were into Viridian Forest before. It doesn't look like that is the case now. Just double check. No. I'm wondering if they eventually had fainted. But you can see here there's a good mix of levels in the Pokemon here. I see some 12, 9. There would be nothing lower than 6 unless it captured a Pokemon here. But this is all trending positively in the right direction. We're just going to have to give it more time. Right now we're at about 70 million steps. I would hope that it would have gotten there sooner from some of the original changes that we had made. The idea being that by about 100 million steps, it should be into Pewter City. But that's when I was excited that we at least were in 2 Viridian Forest. We had positive momentum. Now that we're seeing they're going back, hopefully the next time they will be able to progress further. I think there's 1 more cycle here, 2 more cycles, and then the runs will restart. So overall, positive has been good. I've been asking it. I've been using DeepSeek and ChatGPT for changes that they could suggest based on the code, given the situation. And one of the things that I had suggested was to put a placeholder in instead of using the in-battle functionality to just load this into the coordinates. And it raises a good point, is that the models are going to end up breaking because the negative in the coordinate space. So I wouldn't really be able to do that well, so there's no point in implementing it. The other one is to more directly follow the state tracking of the game. So is it in battle? Is it in the menus? And then try and use that to influence the exploration reward that it's seeing. Still suggesting 0, which I don't necessarily like here. The hope is that we can get more out of it. And then it says to make sure I'm adding those to the outputs here for it. So this was the prompt that I gave it. And then I asked it to use its reasoning to try and explain the advantages and pitfalls of each of them. And then ChatGPT was still very similar. It also mentioned, we're still logging everything here. And then the goal is to have outputs here and then check the state scores to make sure we are getting the improvements out here. So what I will do is I will leave this run for a longer phase of time, probably another day, just to see if we can get to that around that, get into Pewter City would be the hope here. I'm pretty sure we just reset. Yep. Okay. So that'll give us an idea on this run, just like the max that each are given. So one had found almost 2,400 coordinates, which is great. Because that we're trending in the right direction here. Overall, it's about 5% of the map of the game. One had actually had 6 Pokemon in the party. 3 unique Pokemon caught. 1 was using the menu, and then 12 seen was the highest in terms of the overall Pokemon. That was likely one of those ones that was into Vermilion Forest, because now you have a much wider variety of what you can encounter. Let's see here. Yeah, the average level now is almost 20, which is great. That's right around the first cutoff we have for the level scoring to trend off afterwards. So 20 is the first cutoff. Then we get about half reward up until 40 overall levels. And then we basically significantly slow the rewards at that point, because the majority of what you're going to want is the trainer battles. You don't necessarily want to be fighting the wild Pokemon. At that point of the game, the goal is to kind of get through progression here. So we're still seeing no badges, which I would hope would get better. And hopefully we can get that around, you said that 100 million step mark would be best. 72, so we're not too far away from the threshold. 28 million at this point in learning, probably be about 6 to 8 hours for that to continue. But it's good progress overall, and especially compared to before, where we were actually going backwards, like I said, with the changes that were put in there. So you can see here, this was the what was this? I had this one. Yeah, I started on 2.8 to run through, and it ran, what is this? Almost 100 million steps. And what we saw is that in the first round, it did fairly well, and then it just stopped doing it. And it was because of you can see here, the exploration boost, where it was getting half a point for everything just by being in the menus. So it was like, well, I'm going to take these points now, regardless of even if I can get more points overall along the way. So that's why we made the adjustments to encourage it to keep moving through there. And like I said, that's one of my concerns with setting this to just be a 1 point bonus for the battles, but the idea here is that if it's getting into doing the trainer battles more regularly, as it completes those, you get 5 points for completing them. So then losing the one as you go through and continue the exploration is not too much of an adverse effect there. So that's kind of the idea that I have in place here. I also went through, I tried a couple different versions of this. Like I said, I had this logic here where it was flat setting the total reward to 0, which would then cause the agents to not want to go around. So this method is what's running now, where the bonus is set to 0 if it's in the menus, and we are seeing that then curtail it going through the menus. So this is the current run here. Like I said, the last run here, we've gotten pretty high up on the scores. It looks like there's less overall seen Pokemon compared to previous runs. So hopefully it makes more adjustments there. We are seeing, again, the means of the menus come down, which is what I would hope for. And then it looks like it's the items as well is fluctuating. So hopefully it learns. I guess if it hasn't made it in, well, it can get items in Vermilion City. It just has not figured out that it can do so, would be my guess. There's also a couple items for it to pick up in Viridian Forest. If it gets that far, I believe there's a couple that are directly on the path that I would hope to see the score come up a bit more, and then we'll continue the trends there. So that's all for today for this stream. We're going to let this run, like I said, for probably about a day or two. Just continue and see if we can get it all the way through into Pewter City, and then hopefully into Mount Moon and through it. I would hope that we can get there. That would put us probably around the 200 million step range and see progress. That at that point, if it doesn't do that, then it may come back to changing the exploration approach from before, where initially it was blindly searching out. Now this one, we try and reward it for exploring in a grid pattern. But there were also some other issues with that. Like I said, we put a bonus in here for exploring new spaces, and then we were trying to offset it being in battle, but we ended up introducing a bug essentially by doing it this way. So we are seeing positive trends, and hopefully it continues up in that direction. So for those of you who are here today, thank you very much for coming, and I'll see you all tomorrow.